Hey friends, it is day 2, week 3. Today we are talking about identifying your future leaders. So it's really important to early on figure out and discover the people on your team that want more than a hobby and help mentor them to get there. But some people who maybe weren't thinking some people who went into it wanting it to just be a hobby, but somehow kind of turned out to be pretty good at it. These are people that might just need a little bit of belief instilled in them. So as far as identifying your future leaders, it's important to look for people who do things without being asked. They show up to everything. They're active on your team page. They're constantly in the top 20% of sales on your team. They encourage and motivate others, even if they receive no benefit from doing so. They reach out to you when they have questions or concerns, because the quiet ones are the ones you have to worry about, right? The ones who are asking questions, those are people that you want to pay attention to. Because if somebody's not interested, they don't ask questions, right? So figuring out who has just a natural knack for doing this. People who have a team of 1 or 2 who maybe their team hits lead numbers pretty consistently without even trying, start taking these people under your wings. Start trying to find ways to get them to Star Consultant, because Star Consultant is a huge, huge symbol in someone's business. It means that they didn't just accidentally start a team, because you have to have that accident happen more than once, right? Because you can't get to Star Consultant with only one person on your team. It means that there was some intention behind it. And the people who get to Star Consultant are far more likely to stay with you long term. They usually will always be here longer than a year, and they're definitely worth making sure you're investing your time and energies into. So start looking for someone who goes above and beyond in your team page, or just in helping others, even in the big group. People who act more like they're partnering with you instead of being under you. Ones who sell well over 200 consistently a month, and who have at least added one person to their team. If they haven't added someone to their team yet, somebody who's interested in adding someone to their team. I want to know who you think some of your leaders are right now, and what makes you think that they are leaders. Who are some people, though? I think it's really important as we identify future leaders to identify people who look like they were supposed to be a leader and won't be. We need to look at people on our team who make a lot of excuses, who tend to drain a room rather than energize a room. People who talk bad about their teammates a whole lot when they don't meet their goals. People who sell just the minimum 200 but don't get paid on a team they already have. So start looking at people who you thought were your future leaders as well, because it's really important to identify people who really are leaders and future leaders versus people who kind of got there on accident, or they got there and then they kind of felt like the world owed them something when they did. And let's discuss what kinds of things you've noticed in those who are emerging leaders on your team. People who you have on your team, without naming any names. I want to hear some characteristics of people who maybe dress in leader clothing, but they aren't actually, it's likely that they may not go anywhere. Or people who don't realize their leadership potential yet. What are some things you notice about them? It is very, very true that the top 20% of your team is going to do 80% of the work. So you have to be focusing on the top 20% of your team. You can't be spending all of your time fixing and pushing and attempting to motivate people who don't want to do anything in the bottom 80% of your team. It's okay to be there for support, but you don't want to put serious investments into those areas. And when someone shows you who they are, believe them. Don't keep pushing against someone who doesn't want this. Don't let someone sweet talk you into getting more of your time. The numbers speak, period. the PRV numbers, the recruiting numbers, they're facts. They're facts about efforts and motivation. If somebody doesn't have a team yet, the numbers of opportunity and join conversations that they're willing to have, the number of hosting conversations they're willing to have, measurable, numbered things, those don't lie. And it's really important that you focus on what's not lying to you, because a lot of times we get all of our eggs and we put them in someone's basket who's really not going the same direction as we are. And I think this is something that was very difficult for me to learn early on, and even sometimes still difficult for me to handle as I've grown as a leader and as I've seen people come and go. It's been easier to see who I know will stick around, but there will be people who just break your heart, who really seem like they're going, and then they vanish, they stop. But a lot of times those people have shown you who they are well before you are willing to accept that it was true. We tend to think we can change people. We tend to think that we have a part in someone's motivation, but we don't have as much power as we think we do. It's really important to be there as a friend for people who are your friend, as a leader for people who want led, and just accessible to those who might need you eventually. But make sure that if someone's showing you who they are and what they want, you believe them. Don't beg them. If you make anyone feel like they owe you something, or you beg them to do anything, a lot of times it's going to make them run out the door a lot faster than anything else. So let's talk below. Let's have a conversation about what kinds of people on your team that you have right now, but without bad-mouthing anyone. I don't want names. I just want to work through scenarios and situations and identifiers on who we think your future leaders are. Because even though you feel like you are new and you're emerging as a leader, it's important to already start focusing on who your future leaders are. Because the only way that you get to higher leadership roles in this company is by developing leaders within your organization. So this is something you want to focus on early, you want to focus on often and soon. So look at your top 20%. Who's doing the most work on your team? How can we foster that leadership ability that they already kind of naturally have? A lot of times people who are very self-led tend to be pretty good at leading a team by example. So let's talk a little bit about the people that you've noticed on your team without using names, who are either accidental leaders, people who are emerging leaders, people who are your top 20%, and let's try to work on scenarios in which we can help instill belief in those people. Some ways that you can instill belief is going back to that recognition and communication, rewarding the behaviors you want repeated and not rewarding the behaviors you don't want repeated. If someone comes to you constantly complaining about things and you continually show up, they're not going to bring you their good news. Start rewarding when they bring you good news. Reward positive conversations with your attention. Reward efforts with recognition. And that is one of the best ways you can instill belief in someone and to help them continue their journey toward leadership. So again, below, let's chat about your team. Let's not use any names. You can PM me names if they're people that you would love for me to reach down to and help you with instilling belief, but let's not comment with any names. But let's talk about some of our emerging leaders, people who we think are going to be there with us, but without, again, putting our eggs in one basket, because what happens is life happens and people change. And eventually, like I said, someone's going to show you who they are and where they're at, and you have to believe them. You can't keep pushing someone who doesn't want to be moved. But let's have that conversation below. Bye, guys.